Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys what I do for what I call a faux varnish. I put it in quotes. Um, this isn't like a varnish, it's just a fake varnish. It just gets all of the oil paint, it like resaturates everything. It kind of makes it look like fresh paint again. If it's getting kind of matte, you can see this one, you'll be able to tell more so when I put the liquid on it. But it's really matte. It needs to be vibrant again so I can really see what I'm working with in terms of the painting. So I'm going to show you how to do this. Sometimes if I need to varnish a painting and it's right before a show and I need to, but I don't want to do the varnish yet necessarily, I do this instead. So this I do with Liquin. You can see I have just a big swatch of it. This is what I use. Winsor Newton Liquin Original. And yeah, I always make sure I have more than enough just in case I run out, because this is time sensitive. Liquin gets tacky over a period of time, so you want to do this as quickly as you can. The first thing I do, make sure it's flat, of course, and then just kind of wipe off any dust particles you might see. I already went over this one. Just because you don't want those dust particles in the Liquin, because once it's in the Liquin, then it's going to be there forever. So once you have it, and I use a synthetic brush, wide bristle, if my hand is a reference. Let's see, it's a 16. And this is my varnish brush. So this is the brush that I only use for these purposes. So to do this, I usually start on one side and just kind of work pretty quickly, put a little bit on, pull it every direction. You don't want to put it on thick because you'll get streaks from the Liquin. Hopefully the video will pick this up. I'm not quite sure though. We're just gonna see what happens with the video. So I'm pulling it down, crisscrossing it. I'm just pulling out the Liquin as much as I can. And I usually start on one side and then slowly work my way over to the other side, which you'll see. And I go pretty fast. You can see like this painting, I did I don't know, it's kind of like a paint pour, but it's way more purposefully done than just a paint pour with mineral spirits and oil paint. So the mineral spirits, as it dries, it has a really, really matte finish, and I don't want that for my paintings. And it's really hard to tell what's happening in the painting when it's so matte, and it's kind of like grayed out when the mineral spirits evaporates. So I do the Liquin to kind of bring it back up to vibrancy. So I know what the depth is doing, especially with these dark works. You can see I'm pulling it in every direction, pulling it out. Again, trying to go fast. It gets tacky as it starts to dry. It doesn't dry super fast, but you just don't want to be working on this for like, I don't know, like more than 20 minutes, if that, probably even less than 20 minutes. And this is the top, I should say that. This is the top, this is the bottom, kind of doing it that direction so it orients toward the video. So it'll make a little bit more sense as I start finishing this up. And hopefully you can see, let me just show, again, I don't know if this will pick up so much. You can at least see the glare, but see this half, how it's super matte, and this half, how it's dark and rich and saturated. That's what the faux varnish does. Liquin, again, just makes paint look rich again and look saturated. It looks like wet paint. So you can really see the depth happening. This is super flat, super matte, super gray, which I think you can definitely see from the video. So this is a perfect paint to do it with. And I'm gonna keep working on this painting. I'm just doing this so I can just see what's happening so I know where to go with it. But again, I do this with all of my paintings as I finish them. And I have paint that's not quite dry, so that's interesting. So oops. I guess that'll happen. It happened on a chunk that I guess wasn't totally dry. Shoot. I'm just gonna try to wipe it off really fast. See that? So of course, maybe this is happening for a reason. You want to make sure that your painting is all the way dry. Whenever I do these pours, sometimes there's chunks, and this one I kind of wanted the chunks. But because of that, I think this one wasn't totally dry all the way through. So I'm just gonna scrub that out. And I don't know, it doesn't really matter because I'm gonna be going over this anyway, but now it's on my brush, so, oh well. We're just gonna go with it. Hopefully that won't happen with any of these other ones. Oops. You need to think about that. See, you learn something new every day. And I'm going all the way to the edges, so make sure you do that. This is a circle, so the edges make it a little bit trickier with the final pass that I'll do with the brush, but a square you definitely want to go rectangle all the way to the edges. So notice I'm just going back through everything. I'll do this a couple times. And you guys with long hair, tie your long hair back. Hair gets in Liquin and it's really annoying. It's really difficult to get out. It kind of is like a magnet, the Liquin. The Liquin just like sucks dirt to it. It does kind of function as a magnet. So even after I do this, I let it dry flat for maybe like, I don't know, maybe like an hour, half an hour, hour, something like that. And then I set it upright because if I don't, then this is still wet, so dust will just set on the surface, and so you'll get a lot of dust particles on it, which isn't really what you want, or isn't what I want. That happens, it's inevitable, but I want to try to make it not happen if at all possible, or not happen as much. So something you can do too if your painting is really smooth like mine is right now is kind of like scumble it into the surface. So like just working little circle motions. And if you have any like slight texture, like there's a subtle texture to this, it'll get in those crevices. And I always try to do this with a window around or some kind of light source. So I have a window like back behind my laptop because that helps you see what areas you've covered, what areas might need another coat, because you can see the glare. If you don't have a window or a light source, it makes it really hard to see the glare of the Liquin, so it's really difficult to see where you need more. You can see some of those edges. I don't have it. And I just look for the glisten. Sometimes you even, especially if you do this as a faux varnish, like I'm just doing this for in between layers, but if you do this as a faux varnish, I sometimes go over it. I sometimes do this like twice, put the Liquin on twice, just to make sure I have everything. So this is off the camera, but I'm just going over these corners. So and I've really pulled it like this direction, so I'm going to go ahead and pull it across the painting in this direction. So if you remember what it looked like with the half and half, when it was matte, now it's all dark, all saturated. I have no idea what that's picking up. It might just look like a black circle. I promise it's not a black circle. It's just a dark painting because it's on root structure and things that look like mycelium. So, but yeah, so I just keep smoothing this out. And you want to do a really thin layer. Hopefully you notice how much I was pulling out each layer as I drug it across. Just for reference, I still have a lot of Liquin left, so I didn't even come close to using it all. But that's again, like, because I put it on really thin. If you put it on really thick, then you'll get these like Liquin streaks in it. These like kind of like these puddles of Liquin, which aren't what you want. Sometimes you have to even be careful on the corners with that your brush strokes, you don't end up with a glob of Liquin like right on the corner. Sometimes if you have a lot of texture, you'll end up with globs of paint that surround that texture, so you want to kind of work back in to those textured areas and make sure Liquin isn't pooling around that. Same thing happens with varnish. So everything that I'm saying here with the Liquin also applies if you do a varnish. I use Gamvar varnish by Gamblin. I like it the best for my varnishes. And it's also so that if you ever need to redo your varnish, you can easily take it off and put it back on. I've also had to do that, and it worked flawlessly. So if I feel like it's covering the whole area, which I think I'm looking at the glare of the window, kind of just making sure. Then I do my final pass going all one direction. So I don't even take the brush back like this. I just go in one direction. And I usually move from the top to the bottom. Light reflects, like, light is up top on the ceiling, right? It's shooting light down on your painting. So the light is falling in a vertical direction when your painting's on the wall. So that's why I'd go vertical as opposed to horizontal. If you do the final streak horizontal, then as the light hits your painting and shines down, then it's going to catch all those horizontal streaks, and all you're going to see is that varnish instead of your painting. So you always want to make sure to go vertical. And I spend quite a while doing this, so I'm not going to take the whole thing, but yeah, the final pass is vertical. Some people prefer to go up. The lighting affects it in different ways. It's just whatever you prefer. You can kind of play around with it. But yeah, do the final pass, all go in one direction. And notice I started in the middle and going to the edge, and I'll come back to the middle and go to the other edge. This is just what I do with a circle. With a rectilinear painting, like a rectangle or a square, I usually just start on one side and then work my way to the other. But you can feel when it starts to get a little bit tacky. I can even feel on this side of the painting start to set up a little bit. And after you feel that, you have just more like friction on your brush, then you know, like, it's about time to stop. You don't want to overwork it. If you overwork the liquid, then it starts to get gummy. So then you get these like weird, like gummy areas that kind of look like glue in a sense. It's hard to explain. But yeah, you don't want to overwork it. But you do just want to make sure it's even. You want to make sure there's no streaks. Again, because I'm putting another layer on this, I don't have to be as particular, but I always am, just because that's who I am. And I'm kind of using like my whole body to move in the direction of the brush. I'm not just moving my arm, because I'm trying to keep it as consistent as I can and as mechanical as I can. So I'm going back over like every area. And then when you think you have it good, then I usually just double check. I look around all the edges of the painting especially and make sure there's no globs of liquid, no streaks from the brush pulling it across. And yeah, and then I'll let it dry here for 20-30 minutes, maybe an hour, and then I'll put it upright on my easel. So hopefully there'll be less dust particles that dry on the surface, but we shall see. Sometimes you get, this is the little particle. Oh, it looks like it's on the painting. Okay, anyway, hopefully that made sense. Good luck, guys.